technology landscape changing so rapidly around us. And so if you, again, just to put a little bit more color on this, we see that this paradigm, again, based on the same study that I referred to earlier, a couple of them, the impact in the next 3 to 6 years is going to start to change. It's going to be less about investing in commercial technologies and platforms that have been in place and have been iterated on and gone through a maturity curve, and a lot more about the disruptive technology trend. So I'm coming to the topic that's driving a lot of what that disruptive technology really means in today's environment. But if you stay for a moment on how the $1 trillion plus economic impact that cloud is meant to generate in the upcoming years, what we see is there's still a whole lot of what I call difference in the way the organizations are looking at the value of cloud and the disruptive technology set, depending on the industry group that they belong to, right? So if you are talking about the retail, healthcare, insurance, high tech, their ability to get that economic impact is much higher compared to some of the other industries. But on average, everybody's going to benefit. Everybody has a tremendous amount of impact yet to generate from the use of cloud and the use of disruptive platforms. And so when we looked at this from a Microsoft perspective, this really has given us the reason to make the investment, not so much from just a core technology platform point of view, but to recognize the areas that are still coming up, right? I mean, this is kind of a genericized view of what the impact for cloud is meant to be and what's holding the organizations back depending on their industry group. But if you look at how do we tackle a list of challenges that individually these organizations from the industry that they belong to, there's a pattern that starts to emerge. And so I'm not going to go through each box because a lot of these are familiar to you guys have partners in these areas with the end customers. But one of the things that we took to heart over the last few years, and will continue to make more and more investments in the coming years, is the relevance that the cloud platform needs to offer individual industries. Right? So if you look at everything that Azure is about, that's the Microsoft core. Cloud platform. Right? Everybody's familiar with it. And it's not simply a question of how many services, how many additional value areas, how many regions, Azure as a cloud platform continues to be available around the planet, but it's a lot more about what is the differentiation with Azure that we want those industry organizations to be able to create. Right? So that's the focus, that's the layered on areas that we've invested in, that we'll continue to invest in. So just to kind of articulate this more. So what you see around the Azure core is the way we go after the value conversations or the impact conversations, depending on whether it's infrastructure, whether it's app innovation, whether it's in data and AI, optimization, and then obviously everything we know about 365 and Teams and everything else. That's modern work, business applications from Dynamics, security platform, and everything that we're doing from a core domain perspective in each one of those areas, because these apply to all industries. It's not simply a solution area that's individually designed for an industry. So we're investing in all those things as a multi-platform strategy. But then what gets layered around all these core solution areas is the industry cloud solutions. And then obviously those industry cloud solutions get to be realized with our partner ecosystem. So that's the strategy with Azure Cloud that we've been iterating on over the last few years, and we'll continue to make investments not only in the Azure core, which is the middle part of the picture, but also everything that's layered on the core around it. And so if we look at, again, just to spend a couple of minutes on what the core represents today. So we're looking at the adoption rates of Azure that have done really well, and just looking at the Fortune 500 customer set. We'll continue to see more and more offerings come out of the Azure core, how that impacts not only a cloud model, but also the hybrid architecture. Right? So that's the other thing that I'll talk about, particularly from a communications and mobile operators mindset, because it's not simply enough to say that the cloud and regional deployment model with cloud is enough to get that adoption of cloud to take place in the coming years. But it's a lot more to understand what is the on-premise plus the cloud deployment model. And then we also recognize that in many organizations, it's not simply about one cloud, it's multiple clouds. Right? So what's the interaction? How do you help design an architecture? How do you help design a service paradigm that can also navigate a multi-cloud environment in our customer organization? So it's hybrid, it's multi-cloud, it's a core set of services that continue to be expanded on the platform itself. But then, as you just heard me say, what we've done is created very specific industry cloud layers that run on Azure core. And that's some of the industry focus areas that we've focused on so far are listed here. So retail, manufacturing, financial services, healthcare. I mean, if you have heard about the investment and the way we manage our strategy on-site position. And so everything that Nuance represents is layered as part of the healthcare industry cloud. So you don't have to kind of think about, okay, I'm going to adopt this, I'm going to adopt this, and adopt this. How does this all get rendered in an industry relevant conversation, not only with our end customers, but also in the way that our partner community can then take and layer in their value on top of the Azure core, on top of the industry cloud services to make something completely unique and bespoke architecture that might be required for a customer. So that's how we're thinking about the entire ecosystem. Starting with so now I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, so if all these things are in place and all the value areas are maturing very rapidly, whether through our organic investments or the investments that we're making from strategic acquisitions, what's holding us back? What's keeping these individual industry organizations from becoming much more topic of the platform now? And so, one of the things that I'll just highlight here as part of this view is, and I'm sure all of you can relate to this, is there's still an incredible culture shift that needs to take place within these organizations. And so if you look at the ones that are decision makers, if you look at the ones that are running the current environment, if you look at the ones that are thinking about the strategic outlook for those organizations, all of this requires a culture change and kind of a working model. That's easy to talk about as a strategic outlook, but it's a lot more difficult to actually execute. Right? And so that's a perennial challenge. How do you get around it? And the way I want to kind of introduce this era of AI that we're entering is really to address and help enable that culture shift that we want to enable with individually those organizations, depending on the industry, with the relevant area that they care about, and the challenges that they want to solve. And so enter the age of AI, but enter the age of intelligence worker. And the intelligence worker in this case is somebody who, clearly as an information worker, has had access to a ton of data, right? Has had access to world-class systems. But the challenge has been, how do you really make the key, progress and milestones as a result of everything that's been invested in areas that have been optimized? How do you then take that as a platform of capability from those organizations and turn it into that business model advantage, turn it into that disruptive business model change advantage that we would want to create? And so this is where we believe the rise of the intelligence worker enabled in the era of AI is a key enabler for that culture change. Right? So let's talk about how this then gets layered with everything that I've talked about so far. So Azure core remains the same. And that Azure represents from the AI capabilities that are built so that individually the language model support or the language models that you care about, how you can create those bespoke architectures for the AI aspects that's still happening inside of Azure 4. And how those capabilities, along with the capabilities that we invested in or built for the industry, how are they taking advantage of the era of AI? And this is where the concept that we've heard recently quite a bit is co-pilot strategy. So how is the information worker becoming an intelligence worker? In our mindset, it's about the use of co-pilot consistently as an experience, depending on the role that individual is playing in that organization. Right. So this is how it's getting infused into every part of the interaction that either organizations or partners working with those organizations are able to take advantage of. So how are we creating this fabric of co-pilots? I want to have a chance to kind of go into the principles of the Microsoft has talked about publicly. And so it's not simply a question for us to say, here's a version of inside of 365, as part of Bing, as part of Azure. One of the things for security. So one of the things that we have done is really come up with a framework based on the AI principle. So how do we ensure that the AI systems that are being designed on top of these platform areas in a position to really provide a fair experience for everyone that interacts with them? How do we ensure that the privacy and data that gets built into these systems are staying with the organization that are providing those capabilities to enhance those models, enhance those co-pilot experiences? How do we ensure that it's actually the humans that are responsible for, that are not only responsible but accountable for the performance of these AI systems? So all of those principles are leading us thinking about AI as not simply a question of platform, but how does this platform get enabled through the ecosystem and set principles that allow us to scale this, continue to iterate on this. We're not doing our own capabilities, but layering in partners that we're investing in. So, Clark mentioned the starting point, obviously, for a lot of this AI as a platform was the partnership for many years with ChatGPT, OpenAI for ChatGPT. Right. So how did that language model partnership with OpenAI infuse the core capabilities that got into the co-pilot experiences that you see right now as actual experiences? Right. So that was all those investments getting converted into the generally available production experiences that are possible right now. Right? So that's how we started from our perspective. But then you also heard about the LLM support that we're doing, not just from OpenAI, but also for Llama 2 and Llama 3 support for the AI platform. Earlier this week, you may have heard about the big event that we made with G42. That's an AI hub architecture out of UAE. And so we will continue to not simply build AI capabilities out of Microsoft, and we are in all the relevant pieces from partners like OpenAI and Meta and others, but also an ecosystem of partners that are required to actually realize this platform value, not only for their own organizations, but also the ability to deliver this as a service to other organizations in a given industry. So that's the architecture that AI represents for us. Not just a platform, but an entire ecosystem. And just, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. If you also heard about, part of the ecosystem development for this is a reorganization that's inside of Microsoft stuff. Someone coming on board from Reflection AI and using Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft AI. So I think there's going to be a lot more conversations you hear about what this platform and ecosystem really means as a result of a very reorganized view on AI, and that's only going to keep building on the kinds of things that we've already seen come out from our portfolio, whether it's Copilot or Azure. So let me just get a couple more minutes into what is the Copilot strategy, right? And you heard me say that when we're trying to transition from an information worker to an intelligence worker, how do you become relevant in the Copilot paradigm to that individual worker? So they happen to be an executive, they happen to be in operations, they happen to be in finance, they happen to be in any one of these areas. And so one of the things that you will see that we've done in the co-pilots that have been brought up so far is to really address their development. They're actually buying into the strategy that we have to develop the community, and how are they going to benefit from co-pilot and AI assisting them development end-to-end process, whether it's code generation, whether it's quality assurance, whether it's testing for the ability to actually keep the code secure when it gets deployed. It's about all kinds of things that as a human you would have really expected to do this, kind of in a manual manner, right? Having the ability to interact with all those artifacts and assets and then figure out a strategy. So a lot of it is now getting enhanced as a result of the information we have. I think probably you have a lot of familiarity with this issue about what M365 Copilot means. The team's experience that has gone incredibly intelligent as a way of the ability to generate meeting notes, the ability to do transcripts, to be able to come into the meeting 5-10 minutes later and have Copilot tell you what you might have missed, said, right? So all those things that are happening right now for today's experience on top of the Copilot 365 experience is just a small taste of what's possible stuff, right? Well, we've had this very clear, defined strategy of taking the fabric of Copilot, but infusing what the individual perspective is, right? So if you're just a regular meeting attendee, what's your Copilot experience? If you join Teams, you can see Copilot as the ability to do all that down, because you don't have to call anybody else, say, what did you miss? Or listen to an entire call recording to summarize what the team discussion. All of that is done. And so, and then you saw the recent announcement that a few weeks ago that we made about the release of security co-pilot, and then anybody who here has been playing a role in cybersecurity and enhancing the security architecture of organizations, you know how much of a challenge there is to stay ahead of the vectors, the threat vectors that are out there. So the ability for security co-pilot to be able to sense and co-reason with you on what those vulnerabilities are and design a much more secure environment, keeping an eye essentially on a lot of the factors that are present in the security paradigm. That's happening as part of co-pilot for security, and we'll continue to iterate on what that is for that use, or that enabler of security architecture for every organization. And finally, I'll round this out by saying you also got the Dynamics 365 co-pilot. So if you happen to be in CRM or in customer service rounds, how do you interact with a customer and all the redundancies that will happen to do regardless of the system that is described from CRM? How so much of that is now getting, I'll call it automated, but we're really in a position to be reasoned with as part of your interactions with the co-pilot for Dynamics, or call it co-pilot for sales. Okay, so that's a little bit of a drill down, if you will, of what co-pilot is meant to be and how it's getting introduced and released in the marketplace. But is that all we want from co-pilots? Is it all going to be on Microsoft, or are we going to continue to iterate for the value that co-pilots have for the individual organizations. So right from the get-go, our strategy in Copilot was this isn't just about what we think to be the important elements of delivering those Copilot experiences. It needs to be extensible. It needs to actually be able to be trained with your team. It needs to be able to understand the processes that you want to help automate, as well as have the reasoning capability for within your organizations, given the industry that you belong to. So the Copilot is an extensible frame where you can actually chat with your data, you can have much more intelligent analytics that are relevant to you and your organization. How does it actually then get utilized and generate the content that's important for your customer base? How does it interact with your customer base outside of your organization so they have the customer experience that you care about differentiating with? So all those things are part of the ways that the Copilot model gets to be extended when it gets adopted by an individual organization. And so now I'm going to take a little bit, this is, one of the documents and Joe about what I covered in my time with you. One of the areas that I also want to now layer on top of all of this is, so we started with Azure, started with all the for Azure from a core solution perspective across multiple industries, and talked about how Azure is becoming much more relevant to a given industry than introducing the AI capabilities on top of all that platform and how that gets enhanced. As part of our focus in S&T, the other area that we've been paying very close attention to is the impact of 5G and the impact of space connectivity frame, and again the orbital plus terrestrial communication fabric that is getting enhanced every day. You just happen to be a fan of how many times you're even missing a launch of SpaceX that enhances more and more of the satellite coverage for the planet. What is that meant to do, right? What is a seamless connectivity with a terrestrial and orbital environment meant to get to? And so in our definition, it's about really introducing a new paradigm for developing and thinking about value to your users, to your customers. That is a modern connected application. I encourage you to read more about this on the link that's at the bottom right corner. But the main tenets of the modern connected architecture, modern connected application is awareness for what network you're deploying this application on. What's the performance expectation? How's that SLA meant to be maintained regardless of where the user is, whether it's a system like a car or a mobile worker or a set of your production facilities that are tied together and generating data. A lot of sensor data that is getting picked up by the satellite infrastructure that's getting built and added to every day. So it's when I say the word highly distributed, it's actually distributed not just from a trust, it's also distributed based on the interactions that you're really having for a given industry with the amount of data that's getting collected from the sensors and spatial of instrumentation. And so that's the capability that allows you to now think about developing and deploying an application that at the end will run on your enterprise on-premise environment using private 5G experiences or Wi-Fi. It doesn't have to be just private 5G. Deployed, again, as I said at the beginning of the conversation here, that isn't just about deploying on the cloud. What's the hybrid architecture? What's the cloud deployment model? What part of it runs on premises or close to you, or around the areas where the capability is needed for the low latency environment that application requires? I mean, we'll see me talk about this in a moment as to the AI inference that now is getting introduced at the edge environment. Talk about that for a period of time. Mike and I were talking a little bit this morning about IoT and the work that still needs to take place on IoT. I mean, think about it wasn't ever an issue to instrument all those things that are out there spread across a given organization, whether it's a global organization or small organizations in general. What do you do with it? Right? All that sensor information, what do you do with it? Right? So the onus was then back to the information worker to make sense of it and create an architecture for actual capabilities. And so the pivot that's happening, I think I've covered what the modern connected application is meant to achieve. The pivot that's happening is how do you now combine modern connected application with artificial intelligence and a deployment model that spans not only cloud, but at the edge, where the on-prem environment, the hybrid architecture lives, plus everything that you require from a connectivity experience or the data that's coming to you via spatial deployment. Again, there's lots of different use cases. A lot of industry may not necessarily look out for what space can do for them, but the number of industries are. Right? So this view doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's about the application of the right parts of this architecture that give you that competitive advantage, that give you the capability to have AI do the kinds of things that, the fact that you have instrumentation wasn't going to immediately lead to a breakthrough in the business model or a revenue generation. And now we're in a position to go and build that data architecture to be able to take the right actions, again, in a responsible manner with the data that's going to be collected and that needs to be acted on, with the rules that AI systems will be introducing here. And so that's the mindset. That everything now I've started with the Azure core to the commercial solution areas, the industry solution areas, to the applications that are developed on those technologies, deployed anywhere, taking full advantage of an immersive set of experiences enabled by ubiquitous computing, ubiquitous network connectivity. How is that coming together? And that's what we see the true innovation opportunity in the years ahead. And there are some industries that are doing an incredible job of tying all these pieces together and really, creating value for them right now. And we see a lot more of this happening in a much more natural manner and in a much more robust manner for lots of other industries too. So that's kind of my quick, view of how this gets there on top of everything that we're talking about. Again, just in the interest of the room that's here, and what we've also focused on as part of my SMT business unit focus is our value to the operators, right? So this goes back to the concept of what's Azure doing for a given industry, for a given set of requirements that are unique to that industry. So some of the things that we've done very specific to the telecom industry is to create what's the Azure value for those local operators, right? And how they want to run their core networks, how's Azure in a position to become a platform of choice for them. So whether it's a deployment of core network, packet for voice core technologies, or the partners like MDOS that we have that tie into this architecture. This is what the industry view is specific for the communications/telecom industry. And I'll talk about one thing in particular, just a super exciting part of it. Again, in an experience that you and I can have as small consumers. So one of the capabilities that we talked about that is now in public preview in the most recent Mobile World Congress event in February is this Azure Operator Call Collection. And so I'm going to describe there's some really nice demos available if you want to hear about more of what this means. The idea is that there's a very significant vulnerable population here in the United States and other countries, which gets right on for a lot of standards, a lot of themes, depending on which language you're talking about and depending on which country you're talking about. There's still a whole lot that happens from an average consumer's experience on them getting scammed because they get called re-enable their Amazon account, or the cable company claims that they are, not secure enough on their own virus protection, and they need to change to a different plan. But a lot of it's all kinds of things. So one of the things that we're doing here is enabling AI to actually immediately in real time alert the consumer who's receiving a call from a potential scammer and say, hey, look, the call that you're receiving is very likely a scam call, right? And this is done in real time to the consumer's experience, not after. So then they can make the decision that they just simply hang up or watch out for those types of experiences, in the future. So that's what this capability is, right? And I just want to give you a quick flavor of. It's great to talk about the enterprise value. It's great to talk about everything that we have to do for those organizations. What's the end, consumer experience? This is a good example of that. So obviously, this will be done by the operator that's providing that voice connection to that particular consumer. But those are the kinds of capabilities that we're building as part of the industry. Clearly, you're not going to be able to read that from where you are. So, I just wanted to add in a little bit more color on the work that we're doing with mobile operators. What is the type of work that is being done, not just from a network transformation perspective, but also how they are introducing capabilities so that their employees are taking advantage of the Microsoft Core platforms, providing experiences like what AT&T is doing with Ask AT&T, for their consumers, and so this is a good set of items that I'm sure you'll get a chance to read through later on. So I want to end my conversation here to sort of thinking about who you are in the room and what are the kinds of things that you can be interested in pursuing. Let's talk about a lot of things, particularly the era of AI that we're in. How do we get ready for this era? How do we build the necessary set of capabilities that you as partners with Microsoft are developing and delivering to your customers? And so there's a great set of resources that I want to leave behind. That's really meant to help you get AI ready, and that's help build your practices in all these AI capabilities that you can help develop for your customers with the platform value of Microsoft and the system Microsoft represents. And so I'll leave this behind, and hopefully you'll get a good point from these resources. So I'll open this up for any questions or comments that you have. Again, small group, love to hear your perspective, not necessarily just a question.
I appreciate seeing your focus goals. Each of your applications, but now, like, so the other, you're going to have like an income kind of brand in there. You can see Microsoft.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I mean, the thing that we do as part of our strategy is we are what we will continue to emphasize in the way we bring capability to the marketplace. We are not in any way, shape, or form trying to partner with customers on one hand, but then also compete with them from a different point of view. So from a branding perspective, what you refer to is those things will kind of become really touchy areas that we share about having our own brand in this areas that these customers and organizations are talking about on our platform. And so we're kind of not concerned with those types of things. I mean, I'm not saying specifically what you may be referring to as a branding issue, but I'm answering that by saying our outlook towards that is to really be a platform of organization and system partner versus trying to maintain a brand, experience or a presence, if you will, just because of applications develop our own, platform. So,
Need to look at the user interface.
yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that, right? It's very easy for anybody to know their teams. You can't get random, right? It's never going to go away. Well, it's easy or random. But the part about that's really interesting in teams and looking at that as a platform is like without your own application, you put that in the team's marketplace, right? That's your brand. That's whoever it is or that you're working with as an organization, you come up with the right brand. Six aside, so people will know it's your teams, you're using a Microsoft platform. But the app that may be available for teams, for that organization, can have all the branding. My colleague from Microsoft here should certainly expand in any of these areas.
Good morning. Your talk on Copilot for security training, it sounds like a real force multiplier. Can you talk a little bit about what it's and how you will help the network operators
Yeah.
making
Right. So the areas that it ingests depends on what the architecture is that it's supposed to go and advise, right? And so there's obviously some of the Copilot security Copilot detailed code release recently speaks to how we're supporting our own platform and what type of platforms may be invested in by an organization that becomes that source that, that if you look at my AI architecture feature, what are the sources that are going into the Copilot and advise on an appropriate or vulnerability assessment or anything else. So some of those connectors is a question of what architecture we're talking about, and if you just as a result of what I highlighted, spend even a few minutes talking about what the Copilot ties into, what it kind of supports as part of the capability that we built it with initially. So Sentinel is a huge security platform for Microsoft we acquired in major ways in the last few years. So how Sentinel and Copilot interact, right? You get to see that as part of one security. We also understand this is heterogeneous environment, right? This is not going to be only a Sentinel environment that we're trying to deal with. And that's the core mission that we have, right, from a system perspective. Copilot and our cloud is to live in a very heterogeneous environment, right? So the ability for you, if you are in a security paradigm, to build the necessary experiences that it's supposed to help protect you about customizing the pieces that are relevant for that particular organization. So that accessibility is very much part of each of those layers of Copilot.
I'm David. Question about obviously some of the stuff like the Copilot section. I really have a lot to do with where we have a whole company use Copilot. Yeah, one side or development. Is there a team
Yeah. So I think some of the things that I highlighted right at the end of the call to action, like you wanna highly encourage you to just start your assessment on the help that's available to you as part of those experiences. We know this is the paradigm shift is not simply for us in our organization, the organization that we're dealing with, right? But because of the partners we're interacting with them, right? So what we want to do consciously is to build those necessary capabilities inside of organization that you can be part of, so you can have accessible co-pilot value conversation with their respective organizations. So, again, just because there's so many types of co-pilots, like where you want to start, whether it's at the 65 area, whether it's security area, I would encourage you to just, get yourself situated with the initial recommendations that we have, and then, enhance that relationship. That's part of what you may have as specific opportunities for your customers. Good.
Thank you for the presentation today. In your own personal life, questions, co-pilot, can you talk a little about examples of how it's being used?
Yep. Great question. So, the benefit of being in Microsoft was for us to get some of those already, views and provide feedback on what we individually as users were doing. So for me personally, just because we're all knowledge workers, we're trying to be intelligence workers. That's part of what I talked about as a culture change that's going to take place. The area that me and my team, I've had this conversation with one of my computers in the UK. Said, hey, look, when you write your emails, maybe have close, give you recommendations to how to change the tone, the sentiment of what your email is meant to be. It does that very if you've not had the opportunity to try that, if you're writing an email and it's a response to a long thread, first of all, you can ask it to say, write a response from me, a quick paragraph on that. And then you can change the sentiment and communicating externally, whether you're communicating to somebody in your organization or whatever. Right? So far. Not that I use it on every single email, but it's nice to have a starting point sometimes. Somebody is, you don't necessarily have to be sitting in front of a PC to have that capability. If you have, look for my iOS device, the Copilot is operating in exactly the same way that it's offered to me in PC experience. Right, so that makes it much more like, for instance, maybe a lot more important for me to have a rushing through a security data or just quickly have a suggested reply to a long thread versus me taking time and missing questions like contact. So that's the vision that I found. Everything that we're doing with teams, right? So much more time and spent going from calls to calls to calls. There's, my team is based in Europe and time zones, and I'm not able to join those 40 calls for my time zone. Waking up and then being able to see a summary that was discussed without me having to listen to the entire recording of the call. That's constantly relying on.
Shahab, I
We're out of time, Joe.
Sorry,
can we share this presentation?
yeah, Karen actually already downloaded it to your app. So
Okay, that's great. And the second thing, one more lesson.
yeah.
To this group, I think this is a fascinating presentation. I was really fascinated by the operating whole protection. I think that's part of this group.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, okay, we provide communication services, right? And all these spammers that are out there are really messed up our right. Clean that up. I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Certainly have more detailed conversations about it. And that's why I kind of picked that. I hope that you sort of resonated with you.
Yeah.
We're going to keep Shahab on here for the next. Let's have it. Really helped us make, be understandable to us. Now I also understand, as a coordinator getting Shahab to speak here, why his emails to me were so cordial. But this next step is going to be a real